Both Steve Yzerman and Patrick Kane have mutually expressed interest in Kane returning for a third season, but will they get a deal done? We talk about who stays, who goes in the 2025 offseason.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, who, oh my God, just beat the crap out of the Rockies, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I'm a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA, D1 men's hockey. And on today's episode, we are going to be discussing who stays, who goes. We thought it was a nice kind of end cap on the conversations about player evaluations. We're going to do it a little bit differently. Normally, we bring like just a couple of different players we want to discuss, but as I was listing out the players I wanted to talk to with Scotty, damn near half the team was there. So we're going to do the whole team. A lot of it's going to be really easy because a lot of them are just going to stay or go. But the twist here is that we're going to just repurpose the tier maker from the evaluations and retitle the tiers because it just felt like that was easier than it would be to discuss like 7 or 8 players in one episode. So we're going to try and do the whole roster, and if that's going to happen, I got to move on. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. All right, Scotty, we got a whole roster to get through in just at max 35 minutes, so let's go ahead and get started. Scotty, let's do the smart thing and just blow through all the players that are absolutely going to be here. No conversation even needed. And there's a lot. Albert Johansson, staying. Agreed?
Yes.
All right. Dylan Larkin, staying. He's the captain. Agreed?
Agreed.
Lucas Raymond,
For
Alex
sure.
DeBrincat,
For sure.
Simon Edvinsson,
For sure.
Moritz Seider,
For sure.
Cam Talbot.
I do not agree with him being in the same tier as the rest of those guys now.
Okay, we'll put him. We'll move him. We have Austin Watson. One more year on his contract, $750,000.
Yeah, in the organization, yes.
Yeah, I think he's not going anywhere. He serves his
Right.
purpose. Elmer Soderblom.
Yeah.
Marco Kasper.
Yep.
And then you get to, I think this is where you begin to get into the characters who there's a conversation to be had. So before we move into the guys that have conversation, so just to recap, you got Aljo, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, Edvinsson, Seider, Watson, Soderblom, and Kasper, who are absolutely going to be staying with the team/organization if you're Austin Watson. What about the players who are absolutely going? Well, you have expiring deals like Craig Smith, absolutely going.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be back.
Tyler Mott, expiring deal, absolutely going.
Yeah, you don't think there's any chance that the Wings just toss him like a 1-year $900K deal or something?
No, I don't really think
Okay.
that he did enough this season to really earn another contract.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you necessarily. Yeah, that's fine.
Alex Lyon, with Mrazek and Talbot under contract and Kosa in the Wings, is there really a need to re-sign him?
Yeah, that one's kind of a weird one just because like Yzerman was asked specifically about him, and he said that they like Alex Lyon, and Alex Lyon likes the Red Wings. So, like, that one's... I don't think there's any chance, but, like, I mean, they did talk about it, I guess, technically. I feel comfortable putting him in going. I don't think there's any reality in which he comes back, but, I mean, for whatever it's worth to you, the organization and the player both, wouldn't hate it if it did work out.
I really like Alex Lyon too. I just don't see where he fits in the organization just based on everything going on. All right, Jeff Petrie, end of his deal. Yeah, I think that he's probably gone, which sucks because the injury stopped him from getting his 1,000th career game with the Detroit Red Wings. But I digress. I think you can't sign a guy just to get 50 more games and hit the threshold he needs. All right, so there's your who's staying and who's going for sure, in our opinion. Here's where you get to the frothy middle, and here's where the conversation begins to be had. We can just go left to right here, Scotty, if you'd like.
Sure.
Which, starting on the left, that's Ben Sherratt. He's got, another year left on his deal, one more year. with him as well. I think he comes with a partial no move clause. Let me just double check on that. Yes, he has, in the final year of his deal, a 10-team no trade list. I think Ben Sherratt is probably here.
I agree with you. I think he's probably staying. Now, look, that being said, if the Wings were to move him and not have to pay very much or any of the remaining money, I wouldn't hate that. But I think logistically it would be really hard for them to make a deal like that happen. And as we've talked about a lot, like, he wasn't terrible this year. I think that this is just a situation where he is playing far above the role that he should
Right.
at this point in his career and at this point in the contract. So, like, if this dude was on our third pair next season,
Imagine
happy. Like, you can slap an A on his sweater and have him be like a leader on the blue line and play 8 to 10 minutes a night. Like, I see no issue with that. I'm going to be pretty upset if he's rocking the first pair again. So I think he's probably staying. I think it's a pretty slim chance that he has a market from like other teams' perspectives, for the Wings to be able to take advantage of.
Yeah, I agree with you on every single account. I think that he's a leader in the locker room. He's one of your few. I not sandpaper guys. He's not quite a sandpaper guy, but he does play with a little bit of an edge.
Sure.
He is very capable of giving you good hockey games, but he's also very capable of giving you terrible hockey games, which again leads into the point you had where he's playing above where he should be at this point in his career. He should be a third pair defenseman, in my opinion, but that's not his fault. That is on the roster management, roster building side of things.
Right.
I think that there's, with it being the last year of his deal, probably no real reason he gets dealt here, especially because your blue line depth is already so thin. And he's one of the few guys in your blue line who can play 25 minutes, even if it's not very good 25 minutes. So if you're going to move him out, you have to replace him with someone better. Actually, you have to replace him with someone better regardless, in my opinion. But probably staying, yes. Next up, Scotty, is Jonathan Berggren. Another really interesting one. I gotta stop saying interesting. Another fun conversation to be had, because this is a guy that last season we were sold on. Like, he could be used as trade bait. And I'm kind of in the same camp this season. The problem is last year you had he could be anything, even a boat aspect of him, because he only had the one season in the NHL, then he tore it up in the AHL. Now we have a full season of him being a bottom six winger, not really doing a whole heck of a lot. So I feel like his value is lower in terms of trade, but I think that there could still be a market for a team if you want to like add him into a trade as like hey, there's this upside young guy we still might have more left in the tank we haven't been able to unlock. I have him more. He's between probably staying and 50-50. I think if I'm speaking logically, he's probably staying, but I think that there is a argument to be had over 50-50.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like the guy that I almost want like another category. Like, I don't think it's a complete coin flip of like, is 50% chance he stays, 50% chance he goes. I think it's probably a little more likely than that. But if the Wings are to attach a young player to a deal just to like get something kind of over the hump and get a deal done, he's kind of like the prime candidate for that. A guy that I don't think has a ton of value in a trade, to be honest. I don't think other teams are like seeking out Berggren. I don't think he has a lot of value on his own. But if you're like 98% there on a deal with another team and they're like, oh, we just need a little bit more, and you're like, hey, how about we just throw on Berggren, he's like still cheap, maybe can still be something kind of thing, then he falls into that category. So I'm okay with probably staying. I think it's more likely that he stays than goes, and I think he is an above 50% chance. But I certainly think that Ben Sherratt has a better chance of being here than Berggren at the same time. So.
Right. And the upside to keeping Berggren is the fact that he is cheap. He is still he's arbitration eligible, but he's still an RFA. He will need a new deal this offseason, but again, I don't think like he's going to command a lot of money. So he's cheap, young, bottom six. So like there is an argument to keep him as well. And plus he's just like got the best personality on the team. That kid's hilarious.
Yeah.
But from a hockey perspective, it's definitely a tough conversation. Just like JT Compher. Honestly, Compher and Copp are right next to each other, and I think that's a very appropriate placement for these two. So before we get to that, let's go to a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about these two centers. Stay tuned to segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch over 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take you or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including the second generation of Fire TV Stick 4K, the first and second generation of Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and the third generation of Fire TV Cube. Also got to talk to you guys today about Indeed. You just realized your business needs to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates fast. Now you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about it, Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Indeed. Indeed is all you need.
Indeed
it is. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, let's talk about Compher and Copp kind of together because we keep saying it, and obviously they're not like one-for-one identical players, but they play a very similar role on this team, right? And we've discussed it. They're both two-way middle six centers who are on $5+ million deals. I think their deals expire at the same time because I think Compher, did he get a 5-year deal? Is he... So I'm sorry. Yes, he is here for one more year. He also got a 5-year deal the year after Copp. So Compher's deal would expire the year prior. Compher has a 10-team no-trade list, and as does Andrew Copp. So in a lot of categories, they are very similar players. Now, Andrew Copp is the better penalty killer. He's the better defensive center. JT Compher, the first season, provided more offense, but this last year, Copp was the one who provided more offense and played better under Todd McClellan until he got hurt and had his season-ending surgery. So, Scotty, when discussing these two centers, you kind of have to talk about them together. Where do you have them on this list?
I mean, honestly, I have them both in probably staying. And like, not because I necessarily think that that's like the best idea ever. I go back to kind of a similar conversation that we've already had this episode. I don't know what the market is for them. They don't have value. Like what other team in the NHL is like, man, we really need to add JT Compher and the amount of years and money that he's being paid after what he just did this season. Like Copp, at least, I mean, to your point, you have a guy that you can kind of put on a defensive line and you're not afraid to put in the offensive zone and whatnot. Like, I guess there's a little bit of intangibles that comes with Copp, and that's I'm not trying to like disrespect JT Compher. Like, obviously solid player, and we're hoping for a bounce back year next year. But like, as it stands today, I don't know. unless you're willing to eat like a majority of the money, I just don't understand like where a market would come into play for either of them.
Yeah. See, here's my thing is I don't think you can. I agree that in reality, they will probably both be here, but in my mind, that's kind of unacceptable. And I've said it before. Obviously, having Marco Kasper as your second line center on an ELC helps soften the blow of your potential 4C making $5 million. But I think for the health of the organization, you almost have to move one of those guys' contract. And you're right. Where are you going to trade a guy like JT Compher coming off a year like he did? Really, in reality, it'd be a cap dump trade. It would be a cap dump trade to a team that just is in the bottom of a rebuild. Center? Your mother.
Right. No, like, so that's my point. The logistics of this, you're gonna have a cap dump trade. So you're either going to trade him for literally nothing and hope that another team can take on all the money. If that ends up happening, honestly, like that's the best case scenario at this point is you get literally nothing in return, but the other team takes all the money left.
What you get in return is $5 million in cap space.
Correct.
And that you can go spend on a fourth line center that makes less money and that can fill that role.
Right.
That's what you're going to end up doing.
That is exactly my point. 100%. So unless you can find a team that is willing to take all of his contract, because then you're just eating money, and then you have to turn around and you are going to be paying part of his contract. He's not going to be playing center, and then you have to go pay somebody to play center and fill the void. Like that logistically doesn't work. So like, I don't know, man. I really think I am with you. I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I completely agree with you, actually, that I think the Red Wings should do everything in their power to try and get at least one of those dudes off the books completely going into next season. I just don't know logistically, this sounds dramatic, like how that's possible at this point, given their performance and their contracts.
Yeah, and I mean, I think for me, it's just, it's really hard. I mean, I can see it, obviously, but just thinking of spending $10 million in centers on your bottom six just feels gross. And I feel like
it's disgusting.
If you had to choose one, I would choose Andrew Copp over JT Compher. I feel like I'm closer to putting JT Compher in 50-50 more than anything. I think if they have an opportunity to move him, or it could be Copp, but I'm leaning more towards Copp staying right now, that's where that they would do that. Just to get out from underneath the contract for another 3 years. Yeah, 3 more years of that. So right, I think that there is a possibility that they just make the move to offload the contract.
Right. And if that opportunity presents itself, they will do it. I don't know that there are too many teams out there, if any, that are willing to, even for nothing, to take on everything that is how that is the point we're at. Like, and if you can, we're only going to shave like 10% off or whatever. Like if you can find a common ground, then your point still remains and you're correct. I don't know, man. I'm not trying to go like too far off the deep end here with, the current state of how I feel about like Compher's contract. I'm not trying to make it sound like he's just like the worst player in the NHL or anything. Obviously he's not, and he had a really solid first year for the Wings. But just today, I really have a hard time seeing the path for 31 other teams in the NHL to be like knocking on the Wings' door to add that player in contract to their team.
Fair enough. All right, Scotty, let's move on from there. Let's talk about Erik Gustafsson. This is a guy that if you had asked me in the first half of the season, I probably would have been like, you got to get rid of him. It's not working out. But he, again, just like some other players, started to play better before a season-ending injury under Todd McLellan. I think, especially because there's only one more year left on his deal, it's worth running it back with him as your power play 2 guy and seeing if he can come back with a better year. He's not getting paid a ton. Worst case scenario, he's your 7th D-man and you scratch him. I think he's kind of a probably staying guy.
I agree. No, I'm completely lockstep with everything you just said.
All right. And then you also have Cam Talbot. Now, this is a guy I was going to put in staying. I just think that the comments that Steve Yzerman has made really indicate that he is going to roll in the next year with Mrazek and Cam Talbot. In fact, let's grab Mrazek and bring him up here too. I think that those two guys, just like you traded for Mrazek, he even mentioned at the trade deadline because he had the extra year. He liked that part of it. Which
so ridiculous, dude.
So ridiculous. But he has 2 goalies under contract right now, so he doesn't have to go into free agency and look for a goaltender. If Sebastian Cossa forces his way on the team, good. That's a plus. If not, hey, you have a dog crap tandem, but you have a tandem. I think both these guys are here.
I don't disagree. I just think they're both probablys. And the reason why I have them at both probablys and not completely staying is similar to the Compher conversation. It's like if somebody were to approach the Red Wings about either of those goalies, I think the Red Wings would not only listen, but seriously consider, pulling trigger on that in a heartbeat. Like with especially like with the amount of money that Mrazek's making, if a team approaches you and is like, hey, we'll take him off your hands and you can get out from, even though it is only 1 year left, the amount of money you still owe him, I think that they would have no problem parting ways with either. But right now, I agree with you. The plan is for both of them to just be the tandem next year, and that's certainly a decision.
Scotty, let's head to a break. When we return, we'll finish up the last 4 players we have on this list. A couple players who I think you could make an argument for 50-50 or probably going, depending on the person. Stay tuned to segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. It's all right, buddy. No worries.
Dude, I nailed the first one. Like, nailed it. Like, it was ready and perfect before even the transition ended. That one, I pressed everything like 6 times, and I don't even know what ended up happening. So, my fault.
All right. So, no big deal. It's all good.
You're like, I don't care. We're going to go back talking about hockey.
Be real. I pulled an Yzerman press conference moment, and I just drifted off into no man's
land.
Dude, yeah,
wasn't that hilarious? He was literally just like, I'll be honest, I was completely daydreaming. I have no idea what you asked.
You know what's funny is like fans who got just so upset about that. I'm like, dude, come on. Like, you're telling me
I
like
respect
McClellan
him just being real about it, being like, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Like, I got my criticisms of Yzerman, but let's not blow that out of proportion. McClellan was in the middle of a very long answer, so he kind of just drifted off in his head. Like, it happens. He probably started thinking about other questions and other answers that he's already been asked. Like, it's not that big a deal. But I pulled an Yzerman there, so like for a second, like I just completely was like zoned out.
That's all right. Well, I think you kind of organized these where these last 4 are maybe at least 3 of the 4 are probably 3 of the more intriguing conversations on this whole list.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just straight up say it. I think Justin Holl, who's next on the list, is like a 50-50 guy. This is a guy who has a 15, let me double check. He has a partial no trade clause. And this is a guy who we talked about last year. We were saying he's gone. We were so sure. We were like, they're going to buy him out or they're going to trade him because he played 38 games. It is a 10-team no trade list. He played 38 games and he makes $3 million and has not been anywhere close to what we signed him to be. He's got to be gone. Well, then he stayed. Then he played a pretty significant role in the defensive core. He got some of the most sheltered minutes and deployments out of any player any defenseman in the NHL. But in that time, his underlying numbers suggested he handled it well, which God hope so because of how soft it was. So now he's kind of in this category where if with 1 year left on his deal, it's a lot more it's a lot easier pill to swallow to keep him, but also to buy him out or trade him. It's a lot easier to move him to a team that's rebuilding by saying, hey, take this guy for the final year of his contract when it's just 1 year, not 2.
Right.
It's also easier to buy a guy out when you know that buyout's going to be split over 2 years rather than 4 if you had bought him out last season. It's also easier to say, screw it, let's just hang on to him, swallow that pill. He'll be out of here next year.
Yeah, I actually, I would even argue probably going, and maybe this is like I'm being stupid and falling for it again, but because there's a year shaved off, and because I just cannot fathom this blue line looking anything close to what it does, what it did at the end of this year to, what am I saying? I can't fathom like
It's Friday.
A blue line going into next year that looks like it did at the end of this year. Like I think you need a serious overhaul, and
overhaul. Get it?
Get out. I seriously though, like I I didn't do that, by the way. Here are my hands. He did that himself. I genuinely am having a hard time finding the justification for not only keeping a lot of the blue line, but like I'm just kind of talking in circles and not really saying anything. You need a serious overhaul at that position, and I think it has to. You need more than just like, oh, Petrie's gone, and like how, you know, that's one guy, we got to fill one spot. You need serious turnover, and so I'm with 1 year closer to the end of the contract, I'm putting him in probably going.
I won't argue with you on that.
Okay. I really had a hard time saying that for whatever reason. My brain just stopped working, but
it's because I kept messing with you while you were trying to get a thought going.
I'm used to that. Usually I can fight through your nonsense, but
next up, Patrick Kane. I think that this is like, of the guys without a contract, he is the most probably staying guy out of any of these. He is expressed interest in staying. Yzerman has expressed interest in keeping him. Basically, it's just, can they work a contract out? And I have faith that they will. He likes it here.
Okay.
Fans like him here. I think probably stay.
Sure. I thought he was like the epitome of a 50-50, but I'm cool with probably staying. We can put, you know, positive vibes manifests that. I don't think we're gonna
have a single 50-50 on this list.
Okay.
Michael Rasmussen, definitely gone. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, whoa, is there something I don't know?
No. He had a down year. It was the second year of his contract, right? He got that 4-year deal. I believe that was the second year. Let me check. That's why you always keep this stuff up in front of you. No, that was the first year of his 4-year deal. That's right, because the extension kicked in this year, even though he signed it the year prior. Yeah. It was a down year. It wasn't a great year for Rasmussen. His impact dropped everywhere on the ice, it felt like. But I don't see them dealing him. I could see them dealing him. I don't think he's untouchable. And if a trade, was in the works and they wanted a big winger who can play center, I wouldn't be surprised if he got thrown in. But I also don't think it's likely.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's very likely that he goes anywhere either. But yeah, he's very far from like an untouchable level player too. So I'm okay with probably staying. That's fine.
Yep. And then finally is Vladimir Tarasenko. 1 year left on his deal. This is a guy that we know has more goals in him, but his first year with Detroit was an absolute disaster. He obviously has does he have a full no trade clause? I think he might have a full one. He does. The first year is a full no trade clause. The second year is 8 teams. So he's only got 8 team no trade lists going into the second year.
Is it after the draft that the year?
I think it's after the draft.
I think it's after the draft. So.
I think the draft is the last thing on the hockey
right,
calendar.
And then free agency is when the new year starts.
So you can trade him around then. Well, you can trade him now. You just need his approval.
Right.
And then after that, you only need his approval for 8 teams.
Which, like, they can trade him whenever. Like, they're gonna walk up and be like, "Hey, we have a trade worked out for you," and he's gonna be like, "No," and then they're gonna be like, "Okay, well, we're just gonna wait 3 weeks and then do it again." I highly doubt that's too much of an issue for that reason. Yeah.
With 1 year left on his deal, I do wonder if he's a candidate to be bought out too. You would stretch that 4.75 to
Because again, what is the market? I feel like he at
Right.
least has a little bit more of like a pedigree, like
Right.
recently, where you can maybe convince somebody like, "Hey, we just had a horrible system and didn't use them right," and whatever. Like and only a 1 year deal. You're not taking a huge risk. Maybe there's a little bit, that's a little bit easier to trade. Yeah, I mean, this was obviously a catastrophic failure of a season for that contract and that deal. And I think the fan base would be pretty darn frustrated if he was on the roster on opening night.
Right. So the question becomes, are you putting him in probably going or 50-50? I think this is a closer to a 50-50 situation.
Yeah, I was going to say 50-50. I look at this list and it's like, okay, you have 4 roster spots that are guaranteed to open up. None of those guys are big money guys, though. Even Petrie, like his total contract is, but you're only paying whatever, like 4 cents of that. Half the league is paying the rest of his contract. So that's not even like a huge cap hit off. The other 3 are all pretty small contracts. Hall is a probably like, I look at this list and I think that's a huge problem. Like, and maybe we're just wrong. Like maybe I'm just an idiot and Compher's guaranteed to be gone and Copp already has interest from other teams. And like, maybe I'm just stupid and that's fine. I hope that's the case. And
you hope that's the case that you're stupid.
Yes, because I would always rather be dumb and be wrong and have it benefit the Detroit Red Wings 10 times out of 10. I don't have like the pride to like need to be right in that. I would rather the Red Wings be good for the first time in almost a decade. I look at this, and if this is even remotely close to being right, that's a massive issue. That's a massive issue because that means that most of the same roster is going to be back. And it's just some of like the depth guys, to be honest, that are opening up. And maybe you can fill some of those with young players. That's kind of exciting. But like you have seriously restricted your ability to bring in some players. And like they have cap room. Like I'm not trying to say that they're in like cap heck or anything and they're not going to be able to do anything if they don't want to. But you have seriously restricted yourself with moves due to the poor NHL contracts you have given out.
Right. And like we've talked about the rolling cap space. Like that is a strength of how he was building the rebuild and the fact that every single year you had people coming off the books. This year, that's not really the case. You wait 1 more year, you have a lot of people coming off the books next year and then a lot the year after that. But this year, we're banking on these veterans you signed to provide, and they have come nowhere close to providing the caliber that you signed them to be. So now for this year that just happened and this next year coming up, if you can't move any of these contracts, you have a serious problem in your hand where I agree with you. It's a huge problem that we have only 6 players below probably staying.
Right.
Which, because at that point, you're basically running it back with the same roster that did jack all last year. And of course, some of these players could bounce back. I think there's more in the tank of these players that didn't perform. Like I think Tarasenko, I refuse to believe, dropped off from 25 goals a year ago to like 11 this season. Like that's bizarre. I think there's more left than take a Gustafsson too. But you have to see it. And I don't know if I'm willing to wait to see it. But unfortunately, the decision's not up to me.
Right. And even if you move Copp and or Compher down to 50-50, you're still talking about almost the entire roster. Like it doesn't really change the conversation, even if you disagree with me on those two. And it's fine to bank on a bounce back year from some players. What you can't do is cross your fingers and hope for a bounce back season from like a third of your roster. That's preposterous. Right. And that's what we're kind of staring down the barrel of right now in May.
And, a full training camp with McClellan, that actually might benefit a lot of these players.
Some players will bounce back. We
saw it with DeBrincat.
Right.
We saw it with DeBrincat. He bounced back.
All of them will not, though.
And like, I just want to make it clear too. Like, you see this list, and you're like, I can't believe that they think that these guys, or they want these guys to stay. That's not what's happening.
Not what I said. Yeah.
Right. Well, and I just want to clarify that here at the end. Like, if I had it my way, if this was EA Sports NHL 26,
right? If I had a Magic
whatever the latest
wand,
one,
half of these dudes would be gone.
It would be, your probably goings would be like almost all these guys that we just put up here.
Right.
Would be gone, and it would be this is what it would look like, going and probably going, if I had the ability to be general manager, and probably for good reason I'm not, because who knows what I would get in return for these guys.
Thank goodness you're not, dude. Holy cow.
We're looking at this from a realistic perspective that it takes two to tango. With in NHL trades, you only get so many buyout spots every single year, and buyout is like a last ditch resort for absolutely like players you just cannot play anymore. So in reality, the chances of any of these individual players getting moved or dealt is actually pretty slim. So having two players down here where we're like, yeah, there's a chance they could get moved is actually pretty bold, because who knows how hard it is to actually move those guys.
Right.
The reality of the NHL is a lot tougher than what I want it to be in my head.
Yes.
Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Monday, recapping hopefully not the final game of the Grand Rapids Griffins playoff run, as they play Game 3 to try to avoid the sweep in Texas. Stay tuned for that and more. Same time, same place. To your team every day.
Every day.